So, like, if you found out that God was evil, you would still bow down and worship and
Based off
obey?
what standard am I determining that he is evil?
Well, I guess your understanding of good and evil.
So my own personal understanding of good and evil. So I'm going to say that I have a better understanding of good and evil than God does?
Yeah, you could say that.
Do you understand how arrogant that is?
What kind of started kind of to break my faith was the Bible itself. It was just difficult to, so I mean, there's just too many things in the Bible that to me don't line up with a loving God, right? And I think there's plenty of stories in the Bible that are very difficult to try to put together with a loving God. But maybe you can tell me your evidence for it, and we can talk about it.
Okay. So he's not loving. How does that prove he doesn't exist?
It doesn't.
Okay.
To me, it just proves that a loving God to me isn't it's not possible with the evidence of the Bible. It's just
Okay. So Jesus.
improbable.
Okay. So you're just saying I don't like the God of the Bible, so therefore it's false.
Yes, I guess I'm saying that it doesn't make sense that to say that there's a loving God and then show that in the Bible. It's just it, it contradicts everything we know about love and goodness, right?
Right, but that is your argument though, is I don't like what God does in the Bible, so therefore he doesn't exist.
I guess that may be one way to put it.
Sure. So then I can just simply say I do like what God does in the Bible, so therefore he does exist.
Yeah, I suppose if that's the argument. But do you have evidence to show that this God is loving in the Bible? Like,
Well,
how do you explain?
I don't need to show that he is loving because you're using a subjective standard to measure that, right?
How's that? I mean, you think I believe in an objective? You don't think I believe in an objective morality?
Okay, so if you do believe in objective morality, then I'd be very curious where you ground that and how you use that to measure something.
Well, I mean, I think we have anything to do with objective in the sense of wellness, well-being and reducing suffering, right? So we have our biology, our compassion, our empathy. We can ground that in just those kind of basic ways, and then we can judge,
Okay. So
consequentialism, right?
why is reducing suffering good?
Why is reducing suffering good? Well, you tell
Hmm.
me. I mean, we can base it on your level of morality. Do you believe that something is good based off just whatever God says is good?
Why I can't
Like, how
grant
do
that?
you?
I can hold to divine command theory, but that would still have more basis than it's just well-being. Because well-being
Well,
is you're just saying it's a reduction in suffering. Well, why is a reduction in suffering good? That's kind of like circular, right? Well-being in definition is somebody not suffering. So it's more like you're kind of giving me like a circular answer. So why is reduction in suffering good?
it's good because, well, it works. It doesn't work to increase suffering in people. It doesn't get people. It's not functional at all, right? You don't have societies where that happens. So
Yeah, yeah,
it
but
also,
abs-
we evolved this ability to empathize, right? And so because of that, we at least think or understand other people's pain. That also informs our morality. Our morality would probably be different if we couldn't empathize with people, right? Um, and so there's these biological realities that inform our morality, right? Whether we want it or not. So, and then I just what I find interesting as I was still figuring these things out is the fact that we had people say, well, God is love, and then they'll point to things in the Bible or in their lives and their experiences where they'll say, these examples are things that show that God is love. But then when bad things happen,
All right,
right?
well, I got to pause you because you're kind of trailing now. You're not even making an argument. You're just kind of making an appeal. The two things that you said in your argument was this works in empathy, right?
Right.
So it works. Okay, well, that's not entirely true because causing suffering has also worked for other people's well-being. So, for example, slavery throughout history has improved the well-being of the owners of those slaves. So, in that situation, it was actually beneficial to cause suffering for those individuals. And then you say we have empathy. Well, there are people who are born without empathy. So, there's people that are born without empathy. Do they have a standard of morality to go against?
They have a standard of morality, but for those people, they struggle. They become some of them become sociopaths, right? They struggle with empathizing with
Yeah,
other
but why
people
why
because
is
they
that
don't feel.
wrong?
Why is what wrong?
Why is it wrong for them to become sociopaths? They do not have empathy,
Because
so they
it
do not have the
because it
standard that you're using.
well, because it doesn't work in society, you know.
Well, we've already established that it works, right? In society, causing other
Well,
people suffering has caused the benefits of other people. So, like
I
for
didn't understand
example,
your
for
slavery answer. That doesn't make any sense. How is that
why
beneficial for the slave
it's not.
to cause suffering?
It's beneficial to the slave owner.
Right. So then it fails, right? The
Why?
morality fails in that regard because you're causing suffering to others.
Yeah. Why is that a problem? You're just saying suffering is problematic because it's suffering.
Right. And so you would say what? You would say because God doesn't want us to have slaves? That's why it's wrong.
I could say that, yeah, and I think that has a better grounding than just saying it's wrong because it's wrong.
But you can't say that because there's nowhere in the Bible that says that you can't have slaves,
No,
right?
I'm
Yeah,
saying it is a logical possibility. I could say that and it'd have a better grounding than saying it's wrong because it's wrong. I'm not using that as my argument.
but when you're saying better argument, what do you mean? How do you measure, that?
So
How
so
are
what
you measuring that?
what I'm
It's a
saying is
preference.
yeah, so what I'm saying is you're saying God doesn't exist because your feelings. And I don't think that's good
No.
argumentation. Yeah, you're saying I don't like that God did X, so therefore he doesn't exist.
No, I don't see any evidence for your God.
That wasn't your original
That's
argument. You said I read the Bible and
right.
I did not see an all-loving God, so therefore he didn't exist. That was your argument.
No, I mean, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I think what I'm saying is when people say that there's this loving God, I don't
Mhm.
see that loving God in the Bible, right?
Right, in which I'm asking you, how are you measuring that? How are you determining that something is all loving or not all loving? It seems that you're doing it by your own subjective opinion. So if I could look at it and say, well, I do see an all loving God, then he's real. Because if your argument is, I don't see an all loving God, then he's not real, I just use the same argumentation and we're kind of at a stalemate.
Well, you're saying that I have to believe in some God to have some sort of measurement to know what love is and what love isn't. So if I just say,
No,
okay, I believe in,
no, your belief, whether you believe in it or not, is completely irrelevant. Whether he exists is relevant.
sure. And so how do you know something exists?
Well, we can move on to a different point if you can concede that I don't see a loving God is kind of a silly argument for his existence.
No, I mean it's just you're compiling evidence, right? So you're trying to figure out, okay, so you tell me that there's this loving God. So okay, let's look in the Bible to see if this God is loving, and then of course
Right,
you
but that
don't.
you're saying you have this standard to see how he is loving. What is the standard that you're using to measure it against?
Right. To me, it's objective morality in the sense of reducing suffering and increasing well-being. To me,
Well,
that it just makes
reducing
sense. I
suffering and
don't.
increasing well-being is the same thing. It's synonymous, right? Well-being is just the opposite of suffering. So you're just
Okay.
saying you
Yeah.
have well-being and suffering. So why again is suffering bad?
Suff. Why is increasing somebody's suffering bad? Is that what
Why
you're
is
asking?
suffering bad?
Why suffering is bad because every living organism avoids it, right? I mean,
So
it's
because of
it's
feelings.
it's for survival. It's not good for survival. It's not good for cooperation.
Well,
It
su-
doesn't.
su- suffering is good for survival. If again I use suffering to take in slaves, that would be good for my survival. That would increase my well-being.
Not in the long run, it wouldn't, right?
Why
If you
not?
increase the suffering of your slave,
Hmm?
then that slave is not going to, give you good enough work, right? So that you could kill
Yes, they are
that slave.
because if they don't give me good enough work, I'm going to increase their suffering more.
Right, and they will, and that suffering and that their productivity will decrease, right?
No, it's
It
not
doesn't
because if
work.
if their productivity decreases, I will increase the suffering. Pain is
Right,
an
and
excellent
eventually you'll kill them.
motivator. Pain is an excellent motivator.
No, well, no, actually, it's not an excellent motivator
Yes,
necessarily,
so
right? I mean,
I'll explain to you how it's an excellent motivator. Let's imagine that you're barefoot and you walk halfway across a hot road, and so you're standing barefoot on that hot road. Are you going to walk slowly or are you going to run?
sure, you're gonna run, right?
Right. So
But
pain is an excellent motivator. So if I have a slave that's not doing the job that I want them to do, and so I start to beat them, are they most likely going to start doing that job to avoid being beaten?
sure, for a
Right.
small amount of time, but it's, of course, it's
Well,
not the only motivator, and
it's
it's not the
it's
best
not a
motivator.
the evidence is against you because for it's not a small amount of time. The vast majority of history, people had slaves and it built the vast majority of society.
Are you saying that we need pain to motivate people all the time?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying
It,
you have an
do you
arbitrary
think
thing.
do you think it's the
Hold
best
on. You asked
motivator?
me a question. You asked me a question. I'm saying you have an arbitrary standard in which you're measuring things. You're saying suffering is bad because suffering is bad. Why?
It's a grounding, right? You're grounding. If you're asking for a grounding, it is a grounding that we can measure, right? A morality that you can measure. You can measure if something causes suffering or especially unnecessary suffering to
Right.
others. You can
So you're saying suffering is bad because of suffering.
no, because it doesn't work well,
It
right?
does work.
Uh,
We've already established that. The pyramids were
so
built because of suffering,
so you you
right?
you're, you're saying that you can make a good argument that, let's say, um, graping somebody is good for them somehow.
It would not be good for
And
the person being raped, but for the person who is graping,
right,
they would increase their pleasure hormone, they would increase their own status of well-being. So why is it wrong?
because it violates their rights
What
essentially,
is
and
a
it
right?
also it increases their suffering,
What is
and
a
therefore is
right?
wrong.
What is a right?
Well, I don't know. I haven't really thought about what is a right. I guess it's a human and we've created those
Okay,
terms
so
to
it's
define.
arbitrary and ad hoc. So rights are just something that we assign. So if that person doesn't see that person as having rights, then they're not violating anything, are they?
No,
Okay,
no,
so
I
then
don't. I
what is
don't
a
think so.
right?
I mean, you tell me, what is a right?
I don't
It,
believe rights exist.
oh, you don't? Like, I don't understand.
It's
Why not?
arbitrary. It's an arbitrary and ad hoc thing. Rights are just synonymous with laws.
Sure, you don't believe laws exist
I believe
either.
laws exist. Laws are systems that we put in place to govern each other.
So you don't
So
believe in?
you could
Okay,
say
right.
that person
Well,
broke the law. Sure, they broke the law, but if they never get caught, then what harm has fallen upon them? What wrong did they do?
uh-huh. Okay, so going back to the Bible, though, like, do you think that?
You're not answering the questions. You're just
No, what I'm
going
saying.
back to this thing.
No, what I'm saying is
You
like,
haven't given me the reason why this person is wrong. Outside of it just causes harm. You're saying harm is harm and therefore it's wrong.
so maybe you can explain how you I mean, do you struggle with the Bible?
Well, now you're just going back to the same topic. I thought we were moving on.
I don't understand. Like, you don't. I mean, to me, I just want to, like, I would prefer to just talk about, like, just the real, like, I've struggled with it, right? And I've struggled, and I want to know, and I'm open to Christianity. I'm open to having these conversations, and I don't really care about all this philosophical talk. I want to know, like, how do you deal with it, and
Deal with what?
with with the Bible, with the difficult passages. Like, how do you
Like what?
how do you But do you at all? Do you struggle with any of these passages in the Old Testament?
But what's this have to do with anything that we're talking about? Whether I struggle with it, whether I like it or not, is going to be irrelevant to whether God exists.
What do you mean? Like, so will you worship a God that was evil?
What else are you going to do?
What do you mean?
What
Like you
other
don't
option do you have?
so you don't think you have an option but to bow down?
The only
If like
reason that people have the option to decline God in the first place, if they considered him evil, is because God allows it.
so like if you found out that God was evil, you would still bow down and
Based
worship and
based off
obey?
what standard am I determining that he is evil?
Well, I guess your understanding of good and evil.
So my own personal understanding of good and evil. So I'm going to say that I have a better understanding of good and evil than God does.
Yeah, you could say that.
Do you understand how arrogant that is?
Well, I guess it could be arrogant, or it could be just the fact that it violates everything that you understand as good,
Right.
right?
So I understand
Like
from
people give,
my I'm 34 years old. So from my 34 years of experience, I'm going to say I know better than the person who literally created all things, including the concepts of good and evil.
yeah, sure, you could say that.
And you don't see how that is silly.
Well, it could be silly, but you could also be right. I don't know. I mean, I think that
How would
how
I
do,
be right? By what standard am I to say I'm right?
so how do you define good and evil? Like, do you define it based on what the Bible says or what you believe that God has spoken that says? I mean, what
My
is
whole point is how do I look at God and say that my standard is the correct standard? Where does that standard come from?
so you think that it comes from God communicating down to people the good and evil. This is good and this is evil. How does he?
Even if we hold the divine command theory, which I'm not saying I do, but let's say divine command theory is true and things are just moral because God says so, who am I to say that my standard outweighs God's standard? How do I actually implement that? How do I make that objectively true?
I mean, I don't know how you. I mean, it's just because we use these words. Like if you say love, you have to define love, right? And so those words have meaning and they have
Mm-hmm.
boundaries and they have limits, right? And so if you
I
say
agree. Words have meanings, 100%. Yeah.
right, and so and there's limits to love, right? You go beyond that, and then it's it could be enabling, right, or whatever. So everything or justice
Right, but
has
that's what I'm
limits.
asking you when I say the standard. You're saying these words have meaning. I agree with you. I'm asking you the standard. I'm asking you your semantics here. When you say that God is not all loving, so therefore he doesn't exist, by which standard, which semantic are you using to define that?
Well, to me, it's is all the standard that we use as love, the definitions that we have defined as love,
Okay,
right? So
so
if
your own personal opinion.
well, no, I mean like it's the kind of agreed upon opinion of what love is, right? Like
Okay,
if somebody says
go ahead.
something that violates the definition of love, then that's not love. We can see, but that's not
Okay,
love, right? If you
popular opinion.
well, no, just general consensus too, right? I mean, about words, like in their meaning,
Yeah, so
right? So how do you define any
con-
word?
consensus by definition is popular opinion. So you're
Sure,
saying the
sure.
popular opinion determines love.
We have changed that
Okay.
definition over time. Well, it's evolved,
Okay,
right?
so the definition changes and evolves over time. So basically, if in 10 years from now, we all collectively decide that everything that God did in the Bible is all loving, then it becomes actually all loving as an objective standard. And then all of a sudden, God comes into existence.
I don't know. I mean, do you think justice, for example, the justice in do you have a definition of justice?
Can you
Like,
just steel man the question I asked you? I don't think you understood it.
say it again.
Can you just repeat back to me the question I asked you? I don't think you understood it.
Right. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so your argument again here is you don't see an all loving God in the Bible. So therefore he doesn't exist. Your standard for what all lovingness is the consensus viewpoint
Uh,
amongst people. So if in 10 years the consensus viewpoint among people change to believe that everything in the Bible is all loving, then by
mhm.
your definition, God would then all of a sudden magically come into existence.
No, okay. First, let me say that I didn't say that I don't think God is. Maybe I did say that I don't think God is real. I don't know if God is real. Okay, but I think it's improbable. But I know that's besides the point. I don't think also that definitions just drastically change. They get updated. They evolve based on new information. But we don't. We're not going. We don't go backwards in the sense of redefining love. We just revise it and add on based on new evidence,
Okay,
right?
so your original complaint was that you decided that Christianity wasn't true because you read the Bible and you did not see an all-loving God.
Right. But that doesn't mean I don't believe that God is not real. I mean, to me, I think it's just
Okay,
improbable.
the Christian
Right.
God. Your conclusion that the
Right.
Christian God is not real is because you didn't see an all-loving God.
Well, again, I didn't. Yes, improbable. I guess is what I would say. Yeah, I think
Oh,
it's highly
okay,
improbable. Yeah,
right. So,
not
so so
real is kind of is hundred
okay,
percent.
so everything that we've gone through shows that that's an arbitrary and ad hoc stance, and it doesn't disprove or prove anything. It's just you don't think God is real because of your feelings.
Um, I mean, I don't know. I have to then just go back to. I see what you're doing. You're saying that my morality is based on feelings and just preference, right? And I don't think I believe that at all. But I have to think about it some more about my morality and what is it grounded on. I do think that there is good evidence and reasons to base morality on suffering. I guess I haven't really thought out all of the intricate parts of it, but I don't know. I have to think through it. But I think it's much more than just preference. There's intuition, um,
Intuition
and
is a basis of preference, right?
yeah, and
With
then, I think there's,
intuition is just something that you feel right off the bat, and you haven't grounded it or justified it at this point. That's what an intuition is. And so our beliefs start on intuition, and you can have axioms that are on intuition. But you're just saying it's an intuitive feeling. Is just saying he doesn't exist because of my feelings.